Well, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining me. This is the new online series for 2021, SelfRecruiter series. We're going to teach you all about resume, job search, interviewing, LinkedIn. Gosh, that's today's lecture. LinkedIn is a very, very important part of your entire job search process. It's one of the most important marketing tools for you alongside of your resume and, of course, all those communication tools that you may put out there, your messaging and emails and cover letters and all of the things that represent you. But LinkedIn has a special place in its value. Let me share a screen here. We're going to jump in just a little bit here. Welcome, by the way. Let's just give you some dates. We have a couple things coming up. If you were able to join us last night was our kickoff with our resume renovation lecture. That is available over on Facebook and on my YouTube platform. Today, we're going to do LinkedIn Showplace, really how to create a three-dimensional sales brochure, all about you, that naturally drives the reader to one singular conclusion. My gosh, if I hire or work with this person, best business decision I'm going to make today. That's today's lecture. We'll get started in just a moment. Now, this coming Tuesday, that's Tuesday the 26th, that'll be a 5 p.m. lecture. We are doing the interview intervention lecture, but of course, with new material focused on how we conduct that in a virtual world. Our challenges have changed and we have to change with them. Then on Thursday, next week, I'll be back with a 12 p.m. lecture. That one is on the mechanics of job search and how you can really supercharge your job search by taking control. Well, welcome again. This is creating a LinkedIn Showplace. This is both for your career and for your job search. You might be working now, which is fantastic, but we're in a world where we can't plan on the future the way we did in the past, and we have to have contingency plans at the ready. That means having your sales brochure ready. We're going to show you how to, not only how to create it, how to make it much more engaging, but how to utilize it within your job search as well. Now, the entire series is focused on one thing. How is it, let me just come a little bit larger here for you. How is it that we're going to become this self-recruiter? The idea of a self-recruiter is one great recruiter, that's you, by the way, that works with one amazing candidate, which is you, by the way. And along with that, you have to be your own strategist, planner, cheerleader, all the things that are necessary to get you ready and get you presentable, to get you to be your very, very best. Now, let's take this a little bit larger so we can see it. We'll take a center screen here. This is about taking control. So yes, that's about networking in a very different way, which is today's lecture on LinkedIn. But it's also about keeping one eye on that toughest competitor imaginable. You can't let these people, just go on around you, because you know what? These dazzling best of the best people, these perfect people. Have you met one, by the way? I'm not sure that I really have. Now, I strive for perfection, and like everybody else, I'm not perfect either. No one is perfect. We're human beings. What you have to think about is how you outmaneuver these seemingly perfect people that are filled with just the same defects that you may be filled with, or slightly different defects than you may be filled with. Every one of us is striving to be better at what we do, and yet few of us contain the entire skill set that we might like to have for whatever role we're going after. Your job is to sell inspiration and to sell possibilities. This is a country of possibilities, as we have heard recently. You know, your digital brand out in the world here, what are we going to do with this brand, and how do we convert it over to the digital world? And what does that really mean for you? Now, we're talking, excuse me while I wipe my mouth there. We're talking today about LinkedIn, but we're also talking about other platforms as well. Let me get a little sip here. Well, my coffee made it into the show. We're talking about other things as well. For most of us, that's going to be Twitter. Not the way it may have been used in the last number of years, but if you'd like to become employed, Twitter is very, very important to becoming employed. It's another channel, another avenue where you can have marketing materials constantly being fed out to the system, all about you, that draws people to you. Oh, this guy's interesting. Always sharing the right stuff. Always has the right comment. Who is he? Click. And suddenly they're back on your sales brochure on LinkedIn from Twitter or Instagram or wherever else they may be looking at you. You notice Instagram is here too. Now, if we are in the creative field, I don't know how you don't use Instagram as part of the whole process of presenting yourself. For others, what do you do with it? Now, I think Instagram is so important. It's one of the drop-down menus on my website, SelfRecruiter.com. If you look at the drop-down menus, one of them says Instagram. And you might expect there's a collection of all sorts of things with John speaking and presenting professionally. Actually, there's not a single picture. I don't think so. I don't think there's a single picture anywhere on my Instagram that has anything to do with what I'm doing professionally. What you see on my Instagram is me hiking up the Hudson Valley, me climbing Half Dome out in Yosemite, taking on various challenges. It really answers a different question, which is, who are you? What makes you tick? Not why you qualified. Everything else I put out talks about that. Everything else you put out may talk about that. But the reason we hire people, the reason we select people, in addition to them being capable and qualified, is we want to like them. We want to know who they are. We want to get them. We'll talk a lot about that in the interviewing lecture coming up. But in terms of this, I use my Instagram to let people see behind the curtain. Well, who is this guy if I hire him to help me redo my resume or rebuild my LinkedIn profile or coach me through this next, whatever it might be? These are all ways of making it matter for you. Now, why does social media matter, especially with what's gone on over the last number of years? Well, it's the attention getter, that's for sure. It's where the people are, it's where the discussion is, it's where the connections are, it's where the decision makers are. And if you can get other people to talk about you, it's like lighting a wildfire that just takes off on its own. Second from the bottom here is the most interesting to me: how to stay on the top of people's minds while you seemingly have no contact with them, just through the proper continual use of social media. You're on their radar, yet there's no burden of having to contact them directly. And that's how you start influence. That's how you shape influence and shape perception. Small changes change perception. It's really as simple as that. Let me share a few things from my Instagram here, just to inspire you a little bit here. Obviously, you can get a little sense of what I do on the weekends. I tend to get outdoors and out in nature. I live in New York City, concrete jungle, and I need a little antidote to that, which is the other half. Oh, there I am on Half Dome. You haven't climbed Half Dome? That is quite something. 9/11 stuff comes along every year. Of course, here I am. This is a very interesting backstory to this set of pictures. A year ago, August, I found myself out in the California desert, probably because I found a great trail on the internet, which also did warn not to do this hike in August, but it was the only day I was there. And I took a wrong turn and found myself in 108-degree heat with an extra 2 miles. And boy, the last hour, my heart was out of control at about 180 beats per minute, overheating like a madman, having to stop every few minutes. Really didn't think I might make it out. So up until the moment that I realized I was in danger, I was having a great time, amazing, best day. And then suddenly I'm like, I may not see the end of this day. And it was, man, I made it out. Gosh, there's a little peek behind the curtain. Yes, I'm a risk taker, measured risk. I did a lot of research, but what I miscalculated was I didn't understand the body's inability to cool itself. I'm a thin guy. I think I cool off pretty quickly. But gosh, once I bled through all the water in my system to cool off, went right into overheat mode and pretty serious stuff. So that's how I use my Instagram to tell a little bit of the peek behind the story. All the rest does it, the professional side for me. You have to think about how you might use 2 or 3 online platforms, with LinkedIn being the primary a stake place, put that stake in the sand there, and understand how small little perceptions and changes across these platforms change the feeling about you. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of advice today. The biggest thing you have to remember is this, and I don't want to be a distraction, so let's pull it to the center for a second. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. Great story behind this one. Now, I live at Grand Street FDR, so I get into Chinatown, or in a pre-pandemic world, you used to get into Chinatown all the time, very early in the morning. Let me just go back on screen here a little bit. And if you've not been to Chinatown at 8 o'clock in the morning, I highly recommend a trip. You are going to see things that it never even occurred to you. If we back up the clock a year or a little bit more, and I'm headed toward the subway, everything else, like everyone else, I have a million things in my mind. Really just get out of the way or lead. I have to get there. And then suddenly I look up and I see this on someone's t-shirt. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. Now, just before I saw this on the t-shirt, something else did grab my attention, and that was a gigantic hog. I can't even make how big of these things are. Very large, walking down the street on someone's shoulder. I don't know if you've seen one of those things in real life, but they are huge. A lot of bacon on there. First thought was, why isn't this guy toppling over? But, you know, he's a pretty stout guy. Second thing I saw was this shirt, and boy, did it resonate. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. We are on autopilot. Your job today is to take in all this information, align the parts that match with your branding and your desires, and utilize those things. Information is the new currency. The more information you have access to, the more likely you are to be able to leverage it to your benefit. We're going to show you how that works within LinkedIn and how you use it for your job search. Now, if you haven't seen me before, John Krant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. Before all of that, and a couple things that will factor into what I teach you today. And by the way, you should understand the background of anyone teaching you so you understand how to gauge, measure, and value the information they're sharing with you. So 7 or 8 years as a headhunter, traditional headhunter recruiter on a desk, having to reach into the competitor companies, lure the person out. It's really very similar to a glorified dating guru. Maybe millionaire matchmaker might have been another route I should have gone. But it's fantastic. And what a great thing to be able to create opportunities simply from discussion, something every job seeker has to learn as well. Now, in that time, I did 3 different disciplines on a desk. 2 of those were national market. Simply means I never met a single person, but I spoke to them all over the phone, lots of placements. Then I suddenly had to do local market Manhattan. I have to meet everybody. My boss is like, get out of the office, go meet people. I'm like, but why? I'm so good on the phone. Yeah, getting in front of people teaches you something else. When you become a master over the phone, because the phone is difficult, suddenly you get in front of people, which seems scary, and you realize it's like taking candy from a baby. It's very difficult. Never realized how difficult it was for them to say no to you in person. And I'm like, I want to meet everybody. You know, open your eyes and think about what you can do. Ended up being VP over all 100 offices before moving out on my own. And now for the last 10 years, I work directly with clients, reinventing their resumes, their LinkedIn profiles, coaching them through whatever situations they may have, and speaking for quite a number of organizations. One additional thing before all of that, I also ran a pre-press service bureau, which means I really do understand line and type and spacing. And that directly affects what I teach both on resume, which was last night's lecture, and LinkedIn on today's lecture. It's about absorbing communications in a very, very effective way. We're this product, just like this one is. We're this product, and you know what? Do you want to be the store brand product? You know, the one that's the coloring's always a little off, the taste is a little bit off, price is certainly off, which we really like. Or do you want to be that Coca-Cola, the Folgers, the Kellogg's, that national brand that's practically reaching off the shelf and slapping them across the face? How do you want them to perceive your brand? Interchangeable? Well, yes, we have to be interchangeable and capable and qualified for that role. But if you're only those things, I can pay you less. You don't want less? Okay, well, the person next to you wants. No, third person, someone in this line is taking less. You have to be not only interchangeable and capable, but you also have to be somehow special, different, and unique. You have to be both things simultaneously, or you don't rise above the other products. You're not differentiating yourself. Now, for most of this is going to require quite the paradigm shift. I should probably make these just a little bit larger for you. Let's just see. That's not it. There we are. There we are. Make that a little bit larger so you can see these. You don't have to struggle so much. Now, this means be ready to shed that skin. Try it a new way. I don't care how many times you've done it before. Let's keep it in focus. It's your job to teach them how to select you. It's not their job to know you're the one. It's your job to solve the equation and think about how they're going to make their decision. Lots more about that during next week's interview intervention lecture. But really, it starts on the resume, starts with your cover letter and email communications, and it certainly starts with what you put in your LinkedIn profile. So let's keep that part in mind. To recap from yesterday, just so we're really clear, LinkedIn's so important. On your contact line on the resume, right below your name, the LinkedIn profile address should go first. Think about it. The two things we want them to do most. If you're convinced, holding the resume, pick up the phone and call me. Far right, that's your cell phone. You see it right over there. Not quite convinced, the very first thing easiest to get to is just click on that darn LinkedIn profile and get to my 3-dimensional sales brochure, which will convince you the rest of the way that indeed I am the right individual. But what's your story? You know, story is an interesting word. Story has interest. Story is something we have desire for. Yes, be capable and qualified, but let's be clear, that is not the story. Extra clear, I would never hire anyone that was not capable or qualified, but that's not why I hire someone. I wouldn't hire anybody that I didn't believe was capable or qualified. Why I hire them is, why are they interesting? What makes them tick? Why are they different? This may answer a big question you've experienced in your interview life with how they select people. We tend to want people that, you know, if I get trapped in the airport with you, this was an actual hiring manager test. Back when I was a recruiter, I was placing a lot of sales individuals, someone that might sell for a company like Oracle. And, you know, those sales managers, they want to know that you're not a two-headed beast. If I get trapped in the airport with Jack, Jim, or Jill for 4 hours, am I going to want to like cut my head off? I'm not going to hire that person. That's the airport test. If I get stranded with this person, do I have to end my life? Or yes, we tend to want to hire people that are similar to us, or that we can relate to, or that are interesting and we understand what makes them tick. That's how you bridge the gap when there's differences between us. This is part of how you take control of the discussion about you and part of the larger idea of personal branding. Now, it is a LinkedIn lecture today, but resume, of course, is involved. They're both marketing documents. They both speak about you. Your resume is about catching or piquing that interest, maybe the first notice of you. LinkedIn typically is about closing the deal with you as that very, very best individual. My gosh, if I hire that person, certainly best business decision I'll make today. A little more clarity. Another way to look at it is this resume being the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper within seconds. It's a cheat sheet of not the whole story, but only the best pieces about your background that makes them jump out of the chair. Get them on the phone, get them in here, get them on a Zoom. I have to speak with them. LinkedIn, of course, that 3-dimensional sales brochure that drives them to that conclusion. Keep these two in mind as you work on both of them, and especially the LinkedIn piece as we look at today. This is about how you create influence. Now, here's my numbers from today. I have 11,889 direct connections. That's a little bit more than 21 million connections, 3 levels out. You get a 3-level network on LinkedIn. So I have a pool of individuals that has better than 21 million people. LinkedIn is the de facto social networking website for our work life. It's really just like Facebook. I mean, maybe visually looks different, but I mean, they both have profiles. They both have groups. They both have lots of shared media. They both have below every piece of shared media is like, comment, share, message. I mean, they are identical. Must be suing the pants off each other behind the scenes, but really they're focused differently. Facebook is, I don't really know. We'll come back to that one, although it's important to be exposed in certain ways for some of us there. But LinkedIn is where you center yourself professionally. It's where you place your professional shingle out for the world to take a look at. What are you all about? How do you present yourself? What is your value? Now, LinkedIn's a few other things: communication, research, marketing, and advertising platform. Now, a business person thinks of LinkedIn this way automatically. You need to think of LinkedIn this way automatically. You have a personal brand to present, elevate, and sell forevermore. How are you going to lift and elevate and sell and present your brand across the network? You have this 3-level network, which is fantastic. You know, just as an illustration, here I am. Let's just, you don't need to see that so big. I'll come in a little bit tighter here. You know, you see this down in the corner. Let's point the right way. You see that down in the corner, happy guy connected to another happy person right over here. That's fine. That's my direct connection. No matter what my direct connections do to their settings, I get every one of their next connections, the whole next layer. And no matter what those folks do to their privacy settings, I get all of those connections no matter what. I get 3 levels of connections, 21 million people which belong to me, and I can see every stitch of information about them. That's networking in a new world. Networking today isn't necessarily about always having an actual conversation or communication. It's about the digital web of connections that we create that can bring value to us. Not traditional networking, it's pretty quick and easy. Everything you see on screen, and we usually get to the list at the end of here and we go, oh, thank goodness, I'm done. Does anybody like networking? And when I ask a live audience that, I mean, I may have 60, 80 people in the audience, and 3, 4, 5 people are like, well, I like it. I'm like, good for you. Did you notice whose hand is not up? No, I don't like networking. I'm good at it. That is very, very different. Do I enjoy it? No. In reality, despite what you see here, I'm actually shy and introverted. Would someone that's shy and introverted like networking? No. Now, occasionally I do a series for a nonprofit that I work with. It doesn't change my shyness or introversion. And, they're kind enough to invite me to some of their networking events. And most of the time I may have an engagement or a speaking gig in the evening when they have their networking. And I'm, oh, gosh, I can't really join you today, but gosh, I hope it goes well. And then sometimes they have it, pre-pandemic, of course, just right down the street from my house. Like it's 9 very tiny short blocks away. I'm like, oh, and I'm not speaking today. I guess I could stop by. But if I don't really enjoy it and I'm stressed out like everybody else, I hang out at the check-in desk a little too long before they go, oh, get out there and show us how it's done. I'm like, well, thank you. Love to. Rest of the interesting story behind this one, I was feeling stressed that day because my gosh, this particular event, sometimes they're a mix of business, casual, everything else. And my gosh, they were dressed to the T's today. Everyone was like, ooh, I guess they're all after some good networking today. I'm like, ooh, it's stressful. I better go get something cool to refresh me. And I circled around the backside to an open spot on the bar. And I come up right next to this guy to order a cocktail. And I look at this guy and he's just looking out of the crowd. I mean, he looks like his puppy just got run over by a truck. Oh my gosh, look at this guy. I feel so much better. And I just started speaking directly to him over his shoulder, even without catching his attention. I said, tough out there, isn't it? And he just starts in and then looks back at me while he's speaking. He's like, I was out there. It was like a war story he's retelling. Yeah, I was out there doing my best and trying to get to a new group. And then I looked up and someone caught my eyes and they looked away. I didn't know what to do. I said, but you know why they looked away? They didn't know what to do either. You have to change the equation. Most of us show up to these traditional networking events not really understanding them. Your job is not to go in the room and sell yourself. Well, a little bit. Your job is to go in there and be the most interested person in the room. Oh my gosh, what brought you here today? What do you do? How did you get into that? Now, out of curiosity, who'd you work for before that? Oh, what's it like over there? Can you imagine how much information you could uncover with 4, 5, 6 innocuous questions? All you have to be is the social butterfly that just, oh, have you met so-and-so? Oh, no, what brought you here today? Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Oh, so-and-so's doing something like that. Give them all a chance to talk. Guess what? Well, they're all talking and I feel good because I'm just facilitating. That gives me time to think. What do I want to say about me? Short and sweet. Something interesting, something memorable. Traditional networking doesn't really work for us very well. It's this usual customer expect it. We go there, we feel sorry for ourselves, we hand out cards. We don't really traditionally get what we want. And that leaves us in a pretty unhappy place because we always think, oh, we'll just get in the room. But it doesn't really work that easily. That's kind of this rut that we have to break out of. Your job is to change the dynamic and use that in a different way that doesn't leave you feeling these kind of things, because that's not really going to help you. You got to move away from this kind of stuff. Now, we're going to change the equation dramatically simply by changing some of the rules. These are rules you never agreed to in the first place. Well, wait a minute. There might have been some little small print on LinkedIn. It's kind of similar to that credit card print. I mean, you read all that stuff too, right? Yeah, me too. So we're going to do things that are more unusual, unconventional, unexpected, and that's going to open up these light bulb moments, these moments of clarity where we can connect the dots and have a different outcome. So first real question in thinking about LinkedIn and how to use it as a value tool is, well, whom should I network with? Who could be valuable to add to my network? Any thoughts there? Well, let's just skip to the answer and I'll tell you what it is. Everyone. And I have real criteria. You have to be a living, breathing human being on planet Earth. That is my real qualification list right there. And you know what? 1 out of 500 fails that simple test. It's like, I think you're a spammer pretending to be a person, or a company pretending to be a person. You're just going to spam me. No, thank you. Really. I mean, there's so much volume today. There's really no, I get so many invitations. It's a two-handed thing. One hand goes like this. The other hand goes accept, 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 accept. There's no evaluation whatsoever. I don't care if you're in India, Russia, China. I don't care if you're in janitorial services. It is never about you. I'm sorry to say, it's never about you. It's about the 2 or 3 layers of network behind you that I own forever. And my gosh, let's not pre-decide anything. I don't know who you live next to. I don't know who your child is. I don't know who your parent is. I don't know who your friends are. All of those could have value. 2 or 3 layers of network behind everyone is valuable. So connect with as many people as possible. Every single opportunity for you to go somewhere, and we don't have as many of those these days, but we will maybe toward the end of this next year, is a chance to network. But you're going to have to carry business cards. People, once again, in the future will want to take an object out of your hands. And so we will have to have business cards again when the time comes, when it's safe again. And this points out that when life transforms back to how it used to be, we could be in the park or on the way to the diner, almost anywhere, if we thought about it, if it crossed our minds, if we were continually networking. Just to add a little bit of a story to that one, I do pre-pandemic get a chance to travel on occasion, maybe even quite a bit by some standards, which I'm really happy for. But when I travel, I certainly do not look like this. My parents, who are now long past, would have loved me to look like this when I was flying on an airplane. I probably look like the worst of the worst. Just imagine the one outfit you just don't want to see on the airplane. That's probably me. I'm very relaxed, you're not going to take business advice from this guy sitting next to you. And yet, every single time I fly somewhere, I pick up a client, because sooner or later, somewhere in that flight, a conversation is going to begin, and I don't begin it. And I never take them down my road. I go down their road first. It's a date. And eventually they flip the conversation. And by the end of it, of course, I've given them my business card, everything else. And usually 2, 3, 4 months later, suddenly it's either them, their spouse, or someone they know. Suddenly, boom, there's a client just because I took a flight. This is understanding that networking is an ongoing process that can happen anytime. Now, before we show you how to maximize the profiles themselves as a selling brochure, what you want to think about is a couple strategies to use on your LinkedIn pool, this 3-level network that you're building. Now, I'm going to show you just 2 strategies. We're just scratching the surface. These are recruiter techniques. I use these techniques every day as a recruiter. Now, this first technique, let's think about the people that a recruiter meets. The recruiter's going to meet people that are just not qualified. Thank you very much. Let me see what information you have that I can extract. People that are qualified, but I'm not very likely to place you because you're not too sparkly or shiny. And the sparkly, shiny, qualified people that seem like what a recruiter calls a walking invoice. That's an A++ candidate. My gosh, I can place them today. I just need to figure out which of the 3 companies I'm going to call right now and which name to put on that invoice. That's a walking invoice. Someone that's so good, someone's going to hire them today. Well, when a recruiter has a person like that, the first thing they do is they build a statistically perfect list of 30 companies. Yep, 30 companies. 30 companies statistically perfect to hire that person. The only unknown is, do they have an opening? By the way, which is completely irrelevant. That doesn't matter whatsoever. Even if they don't have an opening, they probably have someone in that spot that's not producing. You show up with someone that's dazzling and sparkling, boy, that creates opportunity. So how do you create this list? Well, we're going to go into your database, and your database is LinkedIn. Now, Recruiter has their own database. They never delete anything, no matter what they tell you. They just, it's information's the new currency. They just hoard it and collect it up like a magnet, never letting go, no matter how old it gets. Your information, your database is LinkedIn. You go in and search LinkedIn for people just like you in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form, in some way, shape, or form. And now I'm going to dig through all of those people and look for people that made one job move forward. By default, they'll have one job back. Before we're identical, one forward, one back. You get where the title comes from. Now I collect them all together, as you see on this list over here. Collect them all together. And now I start looking at the one back, one forwards. Now, you know, if I was a Coca-Cola quality manager and now I'm looking for a new job, and I do this, first thing I'm going to experience is heartache. I look at the one backs and one forward companies, and suddenly I'm going, 7-Up, Pepsi Cola, RC Cola, John, I couldn't have written this list myself. Absolutely. That part of the list you should have written yourself right off the top of your head. And then as you continue to look around, you're going to see a million different food and beverage companies you've never heard of, because that's the way the industry is. Every single one of them statistically perfect to hire you because they hired your duplicate. Even if you don't understand why they might like you, go and introduce yourself and get that opportunity. Now, from a statistically perfect list of if they had an opening, I know they'd hire you. You make all those calls and all that outreach. Typically, as a recruiter, we would get 3 or 4 interviews out of that process. That is how you begin targeting just the right organizations with a one back, one forward. Let's show you a different technique. Keep in mind, these are meant to inspire you to think of other ways to use your information. Let me get a little sip. Now, good backstory here. This 1, 2, 3 forward technique, I had an individual that reached out to me from Atlanta. This was many years ago. And they said, I think I need a career coach. I think I don't have a career. I'm like, ouch, send me your stuff. Let's take a look. And you know what? They were 3 or 4 years out of school, done a little of this, a little of that. Now they're managing a health club. By the way, there's nothing wrong with managing a health club. Doesn't want to do it. I don't know how to find a career. I'm like, I have an idea here. I said, well, you're just in the workforce. No. I've been working 3 years. I'm like, welcome. There's nothing here. They're really just in the workforce. I said, let's go back to what I see as your original asset, your education, your degree. Now, I have an example up on screen. This one's a little more complex, so let's just show you here. We're going to bring the center stage so you can really see it. This person went to Clark Atlanta University. So, of course, I searched Clark Atlanta University. This person studied mass media. Guess what all these folks studied? Mass media. And by default, when I did it at the time of the search, they were all 3, 4, 5 years out of school. So we start looking around and we start going, well, okay, well, what titles do you like? It doesn't matter where these are located. I like this title. I like that title. It's like, oh my gosh, I'd love to maybe do something a little different besides being events. Events is very exciting to me. I'd love to be a membership director. Oh, I'd love to be a membership. Oh, recruiter. I'd like to help someone. I said, well, go back to that one. Let's look at Trish here up at the membership director. How is it do you think she did it? Let's come back in. How do you think she did that? Membership director. How did she do it? What do you think her first job was? Membership associate. And her second job? Membership manager. And voila, 3 steps in, she's at membership director. My client, let's just show you my client. Let's just switch the screen here. My client here didn't even know what she's looking for. It's Tahita over on the right here. I said, well, you're looking for a nonprofit or foundation. Lots of those around Atlanta. Well, I don't know what kind of job I'm looking for. It's member services. That's what you're looking for. I don't know what that does. I don't know either. But apparently they're going to love your background. Let's go sell it. And you know what? She found herself on her first step toward her 3-step career goal that she'd never even heard of before our discussion. Now, I've been telling this story for a long time. I have to update this. She's made 2 more moves, up to manager of member services and database, and finally up to director of membership operations. Her entire career down a path she'd never heard of before our very, very short discussion. You have to think about how something like this can open up opportunity. If you wake up having been Coca-Cola quality manager and now I'm unemployed and suddenly go, I'm so done with sugary sodas, but now what? It's all I've done. Okay, I get it. We feel boxed in. If you did the same 1, 2, 3 forward, go in and search for people that used to be a Coca-Cola quality manager. And I'm going to show you how to do these searches here at the end and how you do them only on the free version. I use only the free version. You can do it all in the free version. If I go in and do these searches as the Coca-Cola quality manager and then find people that made 3 steps forward, yes, I have to dig much harder to find that. Yeah, most of them will have gone on to food and beverage someplace else, but then a few of them will spiral out to new industry here, new industry there. Say, oh, how'd they do it? How'd they do it? I don't know. Why don't you simply follow them? Whatever companies they introduce themselves to, there's something about your background that they love. It's the training, it's the exposure, it's who knows what it is, but there's something unknown that they love. Go introduce yourself. If there's an opening, absolutely, they will have interest. That's how you reinvent and go into a new path that is completely unrelated to what you have done. Perception is reality, but you're going to have some idea in the first place about what you want them to feel about this product. You're the product. You're the person that has to market this product. Therefore, you have to understand, well, what small changes do I need to make to shift the perception of how they see me, so I'm not only capable, qualified, interchangeable at the absolute bare minimum, but I'm also interesting, special, different, and elevated. Remembering that dirty phrase, perception is reality. I don't want you to put out false perception, but you have to go command the attention that you have built in your career. Let me share a few things before we show you how to maximize LinkedIn as this selling brochure. Visuals are going to be very, very important. So here's a visual at one of the events that I had done. They took a group shot, so of course I shared that. Then I'm running out the door to one of my lectures in pre-pandemic times, of course, and I posted a share to that. Oh, look at that, 486 views. Well, those aren't Kardashian numbers, nor do I have the Kardashian bank account. But let's break this down. Think about it here a minute. Those are 486 clicks. If there's 486 clicks, thousands of people saw this. That's how advertising works. So each one of these is an advertising impression. How many times did you have to see that darn McDonald's commercial and the Coca-Cola commercial before you're walking down the street and going, I feel like a Big Mac and a Coke for some reason? The effect of advertising, things over time. So here's something I've shared, visual impression. This was when I was doing my online boot camp, about to go live full time on my website shortly. But here I'm doing the online version last year. Someone took a picture of it in the middle of it. My father was a Catholic deacon, so I saw him in that pose all the time. I'm sure he would have loved that. Here I am at WHCR Voice of Harlem Radio. Been up there 4 or 5 times for some very interesting discussions and things going on. I did not make it into this shot, but my coffee and my book certainly did. All of these things change reality by changing perception. Think about how you're going to, whether it's articles or books or whatever it is that you might have, or maybe there's just things that you collect from your industry. You become the curator of interesting content for your industry. Here I'm doing a little bit of a piggyback share. The radio show host shared all of the books of the authors he had on, and suddenly I reshared his content, a little piggyback in which we shared mine. On the way out the door for another lecture, of course, pre-pandemic, and can't share the same darn picture all the time, so I was looking for something new, and one of my attendees had sent this. They were sitting in the front row. I was showing my absolutely absurdly long email signature, and end of the lecture, and I'm greasy, and I'm flushed and embarrassed and laughing. I hate this picture. All I see is, where's my hair? Why is my nose so big? All those things that we don't like about ourselves. And a ridiculous 1,500 views suddenly. Good lesson in, yes, exert a strong branding control, and I certainly do. And full disclosure, my other half's a creative director, so I get some help there. But also understand that breaking your brand and being a human being, that's that Instagram piece as well that I'm utilizing. Showing the human being side of you also is a very valuable way to engage folks. Now, as we reinvent our profile into this 3-dimensional sales brochure, your success is going to be determined by how much effort and preparation you put into it. So in branding our career, yes, it is all about LinkedIn. But if we really want to become employed, if we want to get to that next level, it is really also about Twitter, no matter how much that makes us feel. And it's not just about repeating the same thing on both platforms. It's about having them work together so they make sense, so that every single thing that you begin to share can flow across LinkedIn, seamlessly flow out to Twitter, never having to visit Twitter ever yourself if you don't want to, but it all becomes searchable content. So what are you sharing? What are you commenting in on? By the way, if you are not sharing something with a comment, there's no point in sharing. 4, 5, 6 words of your opinion are required, or nothing sticks to you. So it's really, really important. And think about the effect over time of a series of whatever it is you might share, and how that will elevate or hurt your brand, help you achieve your goals, or maybe set you a little bit further behind at how we're going to maybe fix or adjust our strategy on that. Now, for our content itself that's going to go on the profile, it's really like I had discussed last night. And if you haven't seen that resume renovation lecture, it's available over my YouTube channel, and it's over on Facebook as well. We have to sit and answer one simple question, filter our entire background, maybe 8 or 9 pages of interrogation notes to discover our story. And we filter all that through that one singular question. Why is it going to be the very best business decision they make today if they choose to hire you? That will help understand how to prioritize your content. You have to talk about what they'd like to hear about, and that's revenues or expenses or efficiency or inefficiency, somehow how you affected performance so they can imagine how you might affect their performance. Now let's get into LinkedIn itself. We've got a fresh new look, or we're going to have a fresh new look here as we freshen it up. But again, you have to start from a different angle, looking from the outside. Well, how do others see, what do they see about you if you were to look at you or you to look at them? Now here's 5 people looking at me. By the way, they'll show you more if you pay them, but this 5 people that have looked at you is simply a tool to try to build desire for you to know more and want to pay for a subscription. That's up to you, by the way. Or you could look more frequently. So they'll show you the last 5 for free. How would you like to show up? Would you like to show up like these 2 on the bottom? Let's bring these a little more center stage here. This will help you a little bit. I don't know why we'd look there. There's really nothing there. So you want to show up like that? Is that going to help you? Maybe you're a founder and an owner. Oh my gosh, I hope there's not a founder or owner. If there's a founder and owner on this call, on this video conference, and you're looking to land a job, you need to change the title. We do not hire founders and owners or presidents or those kinds of people, unless you're going for a president's job, and then they'll hire you as a president. But founders and owners, those are people I cannot manage. They don't listen to me. They do whatever they want. Now, Deborah here is looking pretty good. I sense good engagement, good energy in her picture. Oh, textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. We have a focus. We have a focus. Now, I don't really understand what Deborah does within textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. I mean, designing, is it designing the fabrics themselves? Is it answering the phone? Is it talking to the vendors? Is it working on the logistics of? I don't know what it is. I don't get the level of involvement either beyond the focus. But gosh, look at this last one here. Brad, corporate affairs, communication, global reputation management, crisis comms, government relations. Gosh, I can contact that guy too. Looks the part. Really important to look the part. Now, in my normal life, I don't dress like this. I used to joke, of course, now I've masked on for the last year, but I used to joke that, which wasn't really a joke, it's reality, that my clients would literally walk right by me on the street. I'd be with a friend, we'd be walking down the street, and right after I go, that's my client, walked right by me, cannot see me because I'm not in the suit. I'm in t-shirt, jeans, 5-finger shoes, whatever I might be wearing, and they just can't put the 2 images together. This is your profile shot. You have to look right. If I showed up here looking that way, you wouldn't listen to me. So make sure you're presenting the right way. Your profiles are the world at your window. Let's think about that for a second. If you're in retail, what's your job? Tough job, by the way, but your job is to get people into the store. What are you going to put in that window that's going to convince people they have to get into the store? What's going to draw them in? Visuals are very important. Engagement is very important. Your first impression is incredibly important. Now here, I'm going to take you on a tour of my thing. I'm going to put myself a little bit smaller so this can get a little bit bigger. Very important. Impressions. Yes, we have to think about all those things. Now, I am using the banner shot. It is very important to use a banner shot if you can. Let's be clear. You do not have to be in the banner shot yourself. Yes, I can get these shots pretty easily from what I do. But you notice also I picked a shot that would work well with my headshot rather than compete with my headshot. They work synergistically rather than stomping on each other. Of course, below my name, that is your headline. That's essentially a little 140 or maybe a little bit more character resume all about you. And you see the 500 plus connections. Very, very important. These are all first impressions. And even before having to expand a single thing, I put in a quote in the About section. As a recognized expert in job search, I'll have the answers and the concrete steps for success in job search. Or I would have said share if I could read it a little small on my screen. Wonderful quote. I wrote it myself many years ago, put it in quotes. There it is. A magnificent quote. Why don't you write yourself a quote? Something I've done for many of my clients. By the way, if you're wondering how that masterful stuff comes up, It's simply about ability to listen and absorb and not filter. So yeah, I listen like a sponge when I deep dive interview my clients and find out all about their background. And they say the magical phrases about themselves. All I have to do is be present and capture it. And then they go, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, you said it. There it is. That's the first impressions. So, basically the banner image goal here is just, it cannot be distracting. It has to add value. And don't just use a banner image to use a banner image. Use a banner image that somehow elevates your brand itself. Profile image, let's just tell you a little bit about this. I do want to mention this is not posed. This was a few years ago, which is a nice way to say a little more than a few years ago, at City Hall here in New York City, while a couple friends were getting married. Hundreds of people around. The photographer never stopped us, just kept seamlessly moving and shooting and moving and shooting and moving. And he somehow got me isolated against the poles. And I mean, the whole spread belongs in Vanity Fair. I'm like, oh my gosh, your photographer is amazing. I love my picture, and I didn't have to pay for it. Even better. I do give out his name a lot, and have thanked him profusely. So think about that. Now, to be clear, mine's a 3/4 shot. It would be far better if I were looking at camera, but what you see is joy over my friends getting married. Other thing you see is type over top of my picture. Now, that is not a good choice if you are looking to land a role. If you'd like to be an independent expert, it does a lot to elevate your brand. But if you want to go work on staff, biggest concern once you leave the room is, oh my gosh, that person's head's a little bit large. I don't know if we can work with them. Creates a barrier for you. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. Below your name, this is the marketing message all about you that should be drawing them in. Notice that my email address is there. It is one of the only places that LinkedIn does not promptly hide it from 99% of the people. That's their business model. Oh, let's hide the information, and try to make them subscribe for it. So put it in your headline. As you're sharing all that wonderful content in the future out to the network, your headline goes with that. And they see a little snapshot of your background. What do I say in that spot? Author and career coach, resume, LinkedIn, career branding guru, featured speaker at NYPL, Department of Labor, CUNY, and many others. Quoted and seen in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes. Oh, there we are. Well, welcome back. Sorry, we had a little bit of internet glitch here, but this beautiful system here connects it up seamlessly, which, gosh, doesn't that make my life easier? Let's just take this center screen here so that we can see it here. In terms of adjusting the banner image, all around your profile, you are going to find little blue little pencils like this. And yes, we can click into those to begin to edit different things. And maybe I'll just join you on screen here just a little bit here. Your headline, of course, you can enter that in as you see here. All these things we can adjust. In terms of the banner, yes, you have a little bit of wiggle room. Understand you're never going to get it perfect because it shifts between platforms to different size. So there's always a little bit of an adjustment ability there. Now, as we go down your profile, turning it into a sales brochure, first thing I want you to notice is there's no written sentence structure here, other than that very first quote, which is a quote. So I had to put a sentence there. Other than that, you don't see sentence structure in the profile because we're in a world where no one reads. If I'm reinventing someone's resume, there's not a single sentence on the entire resume because we're in a world where no one reads. It has to be easily absorbable. So your about section or summary section, that is 2,000 characters of space. How do we use it? So I put in my quote, put my name behind it. That kind of sets the stage. Then I move on to tell them a little bit more about myself. And then I add the piece about why they should think I'm credible, which is the as seen and featured in. Now, all these TV pieces and publication pieces, I could have put them in much more succinctly this way, but then it would have taken an extra second 2 or 3 of processing in the brain. There is no extra second 2 or 3. This way they see it, it's in the brain. You see it in the brain. Don't even have to read it. They can just see it, absorb it, have it in the brain. As you move down the summary section, by the way, mine is 3 screens long. There's so much room. I have to parse out how I want them to absorb story. My featured speaker at my 2 key places. Plus, I mentioned 8 additional places that I also speak at. I can't just put a giant list in because it becomes a big block of text and they're going to, oh, I hope there's pictures. Well, there are pictures further on down, but don't miss the selling pieces. Can't let them miss NYC Service or Rainbow Push Wall Street Project or Goldman Sachs or Harvard Business School Club of New York City. Can't have them miss that stuff, so you have to parse it out. There's still more room left in the summary, which is really telling them all of how to think of my product before they could ever evaluate my on their own terms, which is employer title. I short circuit all of that by putting the story elements I want up in the summary, in the about section. And so now I start to put in different lectures that I give, a few of the topics, and then I roll the dice on a whole paragraph out of my book. Ooh, that's a lot of risk. But I put my name after it, keep it friendly, and then I segue over to my full services and my website and everything else. And then I begin to attach visuals right to the summary section. You know, your summary section, your individual jobs, they can all take visual elements. Those are images or PowerPoint files or PDF files or video streams off of different places. Now, if you are properly sharing, this white box that you see on screen comes next on your profile. If, by the way, you are not sharing, this white box doesn't exist. There's no way to turn it on or off. When you begin to share, it instantly populates. When you have not shared for a long time, it eventually disappears until you begin to be sharing again. So if we were to back this up 3/4 of a year, I had someone who's a long-term client call me last spring and go, it's not working. Maybe I need a digital makeover. Something's wrong. I'm like, I know your background and I built that profile. I know it's fabulous. Let's go take a look and see what's going on. And what I realized was someone might have thought they had passed away. And I don't mean that in a joking way. It looked like their profile had gone dead. They had not posted in months and months and months. And this section didn't exist. Therefore, how do I know you didn't get hit by a truck and are just never coming back? You don't seem involved in your industry. You don't seem living and breathing. What goes into this box of activity is the automatic things that showcase you are living and breathing your profession passionately. Whether you're being paid or not is irrelevant. By the way, I'm not getting paid for today. I have a lot of passion. You know, passion does not require payment. So this box is incredibly important. Plus, it's a way to let them look over your shoulder and see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, getting involved with. Now, as you work down the profile, it's then about taking every single employer, removing sentence structure, deciding how to parse out the information so it's quickly, easily absorbable. Down to the SelfRecruiter listing, you can see how I began to parse out the different pieces, then continued down through SelfRecruiter and said, well, let's just break it out into these individual sections. You see how easily this communicates with no sentence structure. It's all right there with a little bit of grouping and simplification. They can just absorb the whole thing. Now, once I get that basic part done, which is the real hard work, I then have to go back through and add just a tiny little bit of all caps. Don't use any all caps. Well, they're not likely to look or read it very much at all. Use too many all caps, not likely to look or read very much at all. It's about finding the balance. Here's a look at a little more traditional 2-line bullets. So you can begin to think about how you might present. And yes, by the way, those are forced into 2 lines. Those breaks are purposeful to control how it's absorbed in the brain. Now, at the bottom of this, if you need a keyword block, this is how you do it. Let's just bring this center so you can see it's just a little bit larger. If you need a keyword block, this is how you do it. You skip a few spaces, you write keywords, run it all together, And there it is. Now, I don't know if you are looking very closely at this or not. Probably can't look too closely at it now, although you can look at it on my LinkedIn profile. But if you were looking really closely at it, you'd see Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins. Never quite know how they're going to search him. Tori Johnson, 5 O'Clock Club, 92nd Street Y. All these things that John has absolutely nothing to do with. Why are they here? Because John thinks like a detective. Those are all things that you could search to find a person like me, but you can't find me. Therefore, I have to put these things in a keyword block. By the way, you can imagine that anybody that searches any of those terms I just mentioned, or those people I just mentioned, guess who comes up right next to them because their name is in my profile? I cannot get those names, those terms, or even companies in my profile organically by telling my story if I didn't have any relationship to them, but I could put it in a keyword block. If you have certain companies that you need to always come up next to, think of me, think of me. Keyword block is another way to make sure that you always come up in the right place. So consider using one if you need one. Just do not stick the keyword block in the summary section. Stick it any place else in the profile. The bots will find it. Trust me. Now, if you're going into edit, this is about trial and error. Even myself, with my pre-press background, with my understanding of how all the spacing communicates and either helps it be effective or not effective. Even with me, it's a lot of trial and error to get it just right. You have to give yourself the same permission of trial and error back and forth till it's perfect. And then figure out which jobs, which listings should have additional extra content that maybe you begin to add. A little bit earlier in my background, let me have a little sip. A couple things to teach you here. A little bit earlier in my background as VP over the 100 Office recruiting system, we did engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, chemical, energy, on and on and on. Clever way to just get more keywords in here. This would be a terrible strategy for your resume. Your resume, in my view, is a single sheet of paper, which is a cheat sheet all about you, the best things about you, which is not keywords about some industry. Terrible to use up that real estate with nonsense. But here we are not handcuffed by space. We have a lot more space here. We can utilize things like putting this in, shine a little spotlight of sugar over to our company, and it can reflect some of that back on us. Very important in how that works. In the way I told this story, you can imagine if you worked in manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, chemical, any of these things listed here, and you needed someone to help you reinvent your resume or reinvent your LinkedIn profile, guess who would come right up? Simply by how I told the story. Now, this is the same technique a little bit earlier. Associated clients. Now, that could get you in trouble. Be careful of those non-disclosures and the trade secret agreements. I had the right to share every single client that I worked with. I shared every single client that I worked with. Now, think about it, the storytelling technique. If you worked at Informatica or any of these other companies that are listed here, and you needed someone to help you reinvent your resume or LinkedIn profile, guess who would come right up based on how I told the story? If there's a way for you to utilize this technique to tell your story to some benefit, I want you to begin to think about these things. They're very, very important. Now, look what I wrote just below that. Invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and lion. We started out our first view today of the profile, seeing that 500 plus. That is very, very important. I don't care what your background is. If you have 170 connections, you are not the first one being called. All the people that have 500 plus, 500 plus, 500 plus, they're all the first ones called because the perception is they must know everything, or they must know everything not to do after this point in time. If you'd like endless new connections forever, and by the way, you can just go to my profile, copy this line out, paste it into your profile anywhere. The bots will find it. This is how you're going to get there. By the way, the windows are coming up. I'm going to show you how to personally get to 500 plus in the next 4 days. Those are still coming up here. Publications module you see on screen here. Let's make this just a little bit bigger. Publications module here. I have my book in here. I have a few different articles in here. Essence Magazine, Least Likely Guy. Suddenly I'm in Essence Magazine. And of course, my blog I put in here. Well, you may not have the book, the articles, and those things, but can you write 3 or 4 articles about what you do? Imagine I said, page and a half, because nobody actually wants to read. It has to be very succinct. Page and a half, 3 or 4 articles, somehow about what you do, surrounding what you do. Kind of if I came to you and said, could you talk to my kid? They'd kind of like to go down the same road you're on. Can you give them some pearls of wisdom, some advice? Yeah, the wise mentoring tone is the right approach. 3, 4, 5 articles, that's a demonstration of your ability. Those are all selling articles about why they should hire you. Those are things you could share. You could put on a blog. You could put them on LinkedIn, and it could all track back to your sales brochure as your LinkedIn profile. And you could use the publications module to do it. Organizations. Now, I usually, when I'm live, I usually go, anybody volunteer? Anybody volunteer? And someone will throw up their hands. Well, suddenly I'm not interested. I suddenly realized in mid question that it was volunteer, that it wasn't real. Really? Is this not real today? I'm volunteering here today out to the public. Paid or not paid doesn't make it real. So volunteer has a dismissiveness. So for myself nor my clients, I just don't use the volunteer module. I may use the word volunteer somewhere, but I don't use the module. I use the organizations module. Has all of the same benefit, none of the baggage. Oh, this is how you align yourself. This is how you give back. This is what's important to you. Let's just bring these center screens. You can see a few more of them because I have several screens of them to show you here. We can get over to the right place to switch them over here. There we go. So whatever it is, paid or unpaid, good works, all goes under the organizations module. Now, don't be distracted because I have a lot of dates in here. This module does not require dates. You put them in if you'd like to. I'm a public speaker. It's important for me to put the dates in there. Let me also just add that good works not expiring means you don't have to put those dates in there for sure. It's like, why would I put those dates in there when there's really no need? If you did something for Habitat for Humanity, and that's not a little footprint on the end of your resume, and that's not over here on your LinkedIn profile sales brochure, everybody in the world's Habitat for Humanity. Oh, tell me all about it. That was 2004. That was so exciting. Yeah, it was 2004. I didn't have to list that. But when I tell the story, I'm not hiding anything. I just tell it was 2004. It was so interesting. I went and did this, and I tell the whole story, and they're living vicariously. That is how you begin to make chemistry connections. That's how you use a story that even you thought, oh, that was a little too old. Let's make this one a little larger because I want to just talk about this one a second here. Over on the right here, NYU Wasserman Center. This is another example of that same technique where I'm telling story to draw people. Now, as let's come on screen now that you've seen it. I can come in a little bit. I'm always interested to do something interesting. I get a call from NYU. They're like, hey, we'd like to have this roundtable discussion. We're going to have a moderator. We'd like to bring you in. Are you open for it? I'm like, yeah, I'm always game. Let's try it. And as I'm doing my background research, getting ready for it, I'm looking up Jessica and Vincent, and then I'm looking up John Ladinsky, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. He's got so many followers. I'm very competitive. I may be shy and introverted, but I'm very competitive. I'm like, But I'm thinking something different. I'm not thinking, how can I get more connections than John Ladinsky? I'm thinking of how can I get John Ladinsky's connections, because I already have my connections. And so by giving a little credit where credit is due, sharing the spotlight appropriately, giving the credit to Jessica and John and Vincent, anytime any one of those people are searched, guess who comes up right next to them? And that's also a way to leverage all of, say, John Ladinsky's connections, because every time he comes up, I'm going to come up and people are going to see me as well. So think about how you tell your story and how you use that technique in various ways. Now, there's a skills endorsement module. This is 50 words or phrases all about you. I know how difficult that is. Let's see if we just go back one screen on that, whether it'll let me or not. Oh, there we go. So I know how difficult this is. No one's an expert at 50 things, but I touched this laptop. Therefore, laptop is on the list. Yes, I can have just minimal exposure and be on the list because I'm not claiming to be expert at any of these things. These are things that I have had exposure to. Think about the hiring process. Oh, we need to hire someone that's worked with vendors. They've done this. They've managed an offsite team and done. Yeah, they get on a laundry list, a little chiclet list on the back end. LinkedIn sells a tool for this to hiring individuals, and they can just check off what they need, like a recipe. So get all of your things in there and understand that your goal is to get anything core to you to 99 votes. And boy, that takes some time on that. And think about how that's going to change the perception when all these things are 99 plus, 99 plus. Mover, shaker, finger on the pulse. Now, further down the profile, everything that you have put in, organizations, publications, honors and awards, they all begin to collect in different ways. which is how you make an interesting three-dimensional sales brochure, really kind of automatically, simply by putting the content in. Each of these areas become expandable. So if the person wants more detail, they can click on them and see much, much more detail. If they don't want too much more detail, it doesn't become a distraction to them, and it becomes something that can be valuable for them. As you see here, everything here can be expanded. You can have a lot of content, and all of that content becomes searchable. Now, written recommendations, I think I have 52, 53, 54, something like that up there. There's not a single edit. Now, if you took a time to read a few of these, your head might explode, because right away you're going to see typos and grammar all over the place. Oh my gosh, didn't John see this? Of course I did. That's why they work. Something I learned as a recruiter many, many years ago. Those magical, mythical 3 references. Oh, I'd like to hire you. I need those 3 references. Let me be extra clear. Half of the companies I ever worked with would never check a reference under any circumstance whatsoever. Why? Because they know it's a scam. A little more clarity. Dates of employment, not a scam. Degree verification, not a scam. The rest of it, it's a scam. Shame on you. You cherry picked these 3 people. And if they don't say something great about you, shame on you. You don't even deserve this job. So yeah, half the companies don't even participate in the dog and pony show. The other ones go through it, but they realize what nonsense it is. If I was dealing as a recruiter, if I was dealing with a company suddenly that did want to check the references, they say, oh, John, we'd love to consider moving so-and-so toward an offer. I need their references. I'm like, absolutely. I'll get them right over to you. That's where I employ selective hearing without any hanky-panky. But my selective hearing is, we'd like to maybe get an offer to this person this afternoon. Do you think you could get the completed references to me in the next couple hours? That's how I choose to hear the question. They were just looking for the names and numbers. If I had stopped and asked them permission, I could complete this for you and get them over to the next couple hours. No. I want to talk to them. Very similar to asking your parents for permission. You don't ask your parents for permission. You ask your parents for forgiveness. Can't get ruled out. If I'd asked them up front, they say, no, and then I can't do it. So in those cases where they needed the reference, I would learn from the effectiveness of people's comments, and I would have my 10 questions, no hanky-panky. I'd capture verbatim what came out of their mouth, so be very careful, and it was ugly. Barely a complete sentence anywhere, tangential thought here they never come back to, whole thing in quotes, name, title, phone number, email. First time my boss saw it, absolutely horrified. Oh, hope you're going to clean that up. I'm like, no, I'm actually not going to clean it up, which is not ethical. We're going to leave it the way it is, which is ethical. I said, just take a minute and read the whole thing. Tell me how you feel. And the hairs on the back of your neck are just standing up. It's so real. Same as when you read some of these over here. And when you read them, typos and humanity and all, they work. Learn from that. Not a single edit, and you shouldn't have a single edit either. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to tell your story. Groups, so much to do in groups. Oh, yeah, there's a SelfRecruiter group. I love that. You can join I don't know how many groups. It used to be 50. Now it's much beyond that. Every single group that you join, every member is suddenly in your 3-level network, your searchable pool. So let's go join as many groups as possible that have as many people in your industry. You may join some groups to showcase your skill set, or some groups to showcase the companies you're interested in, or some groups to showcase the new industry you wish you had experience in because you'd like to transition. Lots of great reasons. Or maybe you join some group that's very inappropriate for you, but contains all your decision makers. Very clever. Now, anything you share could land on the desktop, the news feed of a decision maker of yours. So much we can do in group strategy. Influencers, follow a few influencers. Oh my gosh, I'm following Tony Robbins, mostly so I can get behind him on stage, give a little push. Yeah, get a little long in the tooth, and gosh, some of us need a little more room up there. Getting to those 500 plus connections and being seen as a mover and shaker. You have 80, 90 connections. I cannot possibly think the same way of you as your 3 competitors that have 500 plus, 500 plus, 500 plus. So how do we do it? We're going to go up to the unified search box, the top of any page. We're going to go in there and put something in this example. We're just going to put invite me. If you need to see these a little larger, let's just bring them center stage a second. Invite me. The whole thing has quotes around it. Get all those people. Next thing is all invites accepted, has quotes around it, get to see all those people. Next thing we're going to do is, let's see, open networker. And all those people that have open networker come up. And last one is lion. Doesn't need the quotes because it's a lion, single word. And that's a high volume networker, LinkedIn open networker, a lion. All of those people, I then run down the list, as many people as they give me, and I invite every single one of them. Invite them all to connect with me. If I did that all today, popped all of that in today, and over the next hour or two, just invite all those people. What is today? Thursday? By Monday, I don't care if you're at 0 today. By Monday, you'd be at 500 plus connections. I've done this so many times. I know it works. Wherever you are in your process of reinventing your LinkedIn profile, developing your background, your resume into a full out three-dimensional sales brochure, take your next step, take your first step, and learn how to repeat, and refine along the way to make it really, really great. Now, getting to the decision maker, last thing to teach you today, then we're going to give you a couple of different reminders. How do we find essentially anyone as part of our outreach process, whether that's the boss or boss's boss or boss's boss's boss? It doesn't really matter too much. We're going to go up into the unified search box again, same place on every page. In this example, I am searching Informatica, big database middleware company. Did a lot of work with them. I love them. They were a great company as I was working with them. And yes, I'm here looking for the people that work there. But you know what? As long as I'm here, there must be other companies I haven't thought of that I should also be approaching at the same time. So just in searching, I'd like to see a list of companies. Oh, I don't see that. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Under more, I suddenly list companies. Show me the companies. What do we get? 34,000 companies. Gosh, that's a lot of companies. I know all these in view say Informatica, but just down the list, they stopped saying Informatica. Who are all these other companies? I can tell you. A few dozen maybe belong to Informatica. The rest are all system integrators. They either resell or install Informatica software. If I am right to work for Informatica, I'm statistically right to work for most of these companies. This is an alternate method, by the way, to build that statistically perfect list of companies I should be approaching one by one by one. But I still do want to find the actual people at Informatica. So I got to go back and go, no, show me the people. What do I get? 2.5 million cold and in the ground before I can get through that list. So we're going to have to think here, even on the free version of LinkedIn. So let's see here. Maybe location. Maybe I don't need to see the whole world. Show me the ones that are really in the US. And as long as I'm thinking about it, I also don't need the ones that left Informatica 3 years ago. I need the people currently working for Informatica and currently in the US, even on the free version. What do I get? 1,615 results. Now that's pretty good. But let's be real. I can't look at 1,600 profiles. That's not going to work either. I'm going to have to use a little more brain power. Maybe add in a title. Maybe it's a VP I think is going to hire me. Notice that's just a simple VP in the search. Really in the US, really currently working for Informatica. What do I get? 75 VPs. This is problem solving. 75 VPs. Maybe it's a director. Maybe I'm off track. Let's take a look at the directors. Really in the US, really currently working for Informatica. 228 directors. I'm going the wrong direction now. I know what it is because it's brainstorming. You know what it is? It's a sales director I'm actually after. So close. I'm after a sales director. And you know what? I really want them in New York City, even on the free version, right down to New York City, Informatica, current employer. What do I get? 3. As I outreach to introduce myself to companies, I am looking to find 3 to 5 individuals that I'm going to approach simultaneously, as if each one of the only one in the world, the only one in the world, the only one in the world. So I see who responds to me. Here's 3 people right away. That's great. But I was really looking for 5, not 3. So let's go back. Maybe there's a sales VP. Maybe I missed someone in the New York City area. 2 sales VPs. Now I do have 5. And yeah, I want to open and ask them to connect. Ooh, send InMail. I hope you understand what InMail is. Spam. It is literally the definition of spam. It's paid email. Do not send it. I have well over 1,000 unopened messages in my LinkedIn inbox, just clogged beyond belief with spam. By the way, please contact me at my email, which is john@selfrecruiter.com, not in my spam box, which is on LinkedIn. So I still want to connect with Nick, even though it says send that darn InMail, but I'm not going to send an InMail. If I just load at Nick's profile, it's still trying to frustrate me. But if I just click those ... you see they just hid the connect button just behind the bushes. We'll just put it over here. You wanted to see it. Their job is to let you connect. They can't really stop you. And here's that message you write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that. Comment. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. And that's it. Says you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. Little stroke to the ego. Again, in this process, take your first step and learn how to repeat, 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 repeat. Just to close out today, I want to give you a little bit of insight ahead of next Thursday's lecture on job search structure. Just a little bit about what I really think a job search plan is. And that is not responding or looking for postings. By the way, responding and looking for postings is part of job search, one singular activity among about 15 different activities. You can't put everything in that one singular basket and think you're going to have an actual outcome that you enjoy or like. So my piece that I will go into deep, deep detail for next Thursday, and that's next Thursday at noon, is how to create this real job search plan, how to organize and structure and manage your job search by selecting the right organizations, devising, working backwards, aligning the sun, the moon, the stars. It's not possible, but if it was, how can we align the sun, the moon, the stars, discover the steps needed, discover those decision makers, which I really just taught you how to do in today's session, overcome their objections, because it's their job to object to you. That's their job. Why would you let that throw you off? You don't have this. Great. They're engaged with me. They're having discussion. And then I have to overcome that objection. Get a meeting, dazzle them. That's what real job search is. And come back next Thursday for that. This next Tuesday, we're going to do the 5 p.m. lecture. That's Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, 5 p.m. lecture. That is the interview intervention lecture in a pandemic world. All the things you have to consider in this new format where we have to do it over video. We likely have to work remotely for quite some time. And we still have to build engagement and accomplish all the things we need to do to set their objections aside. That we'll be interviewing on Tuesday and job search planning on Thursday next week. Here's the list. Today was LinkedIn Showplace. Well, thank you guys for joining in today. I really appreciate it. This will be on Facebook, it'll be on my YouTube channel. You can view them there and do whatever you need to there. It's all about creating a LinkedIn Showplace. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great start to your weekend. Of course, if you need some help, I think you know where to find me, SelfRecruiter.com, and talk to you soon. Take care.